If you write something mediocre, chances are it's not going to get published. Now, how does it not become mediocre? It becomes not mediocre because, A, you have just this tremendous idea, and we've talked about ideas and how some of them really rise above the pack, or you've created these characters or a character who's just so fresh and involving, and just the way they look at the world. I mean, that's really what it is. It's the way they see the world. And you really want your readers to have strong feelings about your characters. You want them to love that character, or you want them to want that character to somehow pull themselves up somehow, or you want to hate that character. But you're not going to do it unless you create characters that really make an impression on them, make them feel. What goes into creating a character? What goes into a human being? What goes into me? What goes into you? What are the parts? One of the things that's useful, I think, is just think of anybody you've met, anybody in your life that you find interesting. Why is that? You know, are you a religious person? If you're not, what are you? Are you a spiritual person? How does that affect how you conduct your life? Do you have any physical attributes that are important? You know, are you 70 pounds overweight? What does that mean to how you conduct your life, your internal life, and your the way you deal with the world? Pretty much everybody you meet, if you just start writing down all their little tics and all the things they do, and that's what makes them who they are. And there's kind of an infinite number of things. I mean, there really are. And that's the challenge of it. You know, what fits your main characters? What are that are relevant to your story? You know, you just want to make it as tight as you can in terms of those talents really making that story stronger and stronger and stronger. And you just keep more and more attributes and things that the characters do. And eventually, you know, and that's also an aha moment, and also very joyful when you figure out something about that character that's exactly right. And what you're going to find out is you're starting to understand your own character. As I say, I don't write realism, but I've had hundreds, maybe thousands of policemen and FBI people go, "You got it right." And I think what they mean by that is not that I got all the details right, but I got the spirit of it right. I have the feeling for what it's like to be a cop and out there doing a very difficult job that a lot of people don't understand how hard that is, and then how hard it is to leave it behind and go home and try to be a father or a husband or a wife, or, you know, whatever that particular cop is. So I get the emotional part right, and that gets me over a lot of bumps. Talking about Michael Bennett and one of his kids who goes out and is robbing stores. One, the scenes with this kid who's been brought up really well, him going out and robbing a store, that's big. And you need to be able to put yourself in the head of that kid. What goes through the mind of a young kid who's been brought up well? His father's a cop. He doesn't have big problems with his father, but where he came from is maybe an issue because he's adopted. But what goes through that kid's head? What goes through anybody's head when they walk into a store and rob it? But this is a kid who's never, you know, so how do you capture that? How do you make that come alive? How do you make that believable? But more than anything, how do you get in that character's head so you feel it? You got to put yourself there. I mean, that's one of the things. I will write, in one of my drafts, maybe half the chapters, I'll just put "be there" at the top of the chapter. And that means you got to be in that scene. You need to experience it like that character, or it ain't going to be any good. It's useful to ask yourself, if someone was drowning in the ocean, would you really go in and save them? Or if your character is put in a position where they have to save somebody in the ocean, what kind of complexity? Is there complexity? Is it just a reflex thing with them? If it is a reflex thing, do they get halfway out there and going like, what the hell am I doing? How am I going to handle this? Do I have the skill to save this person? You want it to be complicated. You want to be able to put the reader there in the real world, not no bullshit. I think you need to capture the complexity of that, or it just isn't terribly interesting. I think, that you would have second thoughts about, going into the ocean to try to save somebody, because your own life, for real, be there, get it, your own life is in jeopardy. It's difficult, not impossible, but difficult to create a hero that you want to read about page after page after page if there isn't some complexity. So, for example, in my private series, Jack is he's quite bright, but his family background, his father's been to jail. He has a terrible relationship with his father. He's been in the Army. He did something that in the Army, a helicopter went down, and a lot of us would think that what he did is heroic in that he saved a couple of people from the helicopter, but he also left somebody in the helicopter. So he considers that a shameful, something he just can't get past. Even though most of us would look at what he did as heroic, he doesn't believe that. So, and that's a good flaw in that we're kind of on his side, but he's not on his own side. And we kind of want to shake him and go, Jack, it's okay. You did the best you could. You did a great thing. I don't know that I would have gone in the burning helicopter the first time or the second time. And the fact that you didn't go in the third time, it's okay. You did, as we humans go, that you did very well. But that he cannot escape that. It just continues to be something that troubles him through his life. I think that one of the things that that really gets people is when you have a character that seems one way, like they're very sort of hard, and then all of a sudden you see another side of them. And you go, oh, okay, he's a tough guy, but he's a sweetheart too. And I think when you see that other side, with an Alex Cross or Kay Scarpetta, Patricia Cornwell's lead character, and Scarpetta, can really be a jerk at times. And then every once in a while, she just reveals herself as such a sweetheart. And you go like, oh, I kind of like her. So and that was part of the thing with House, the TV series, where, he's just so nasty and unpleasant. But every once in a while, you just got to kind of glance. And it was much more subtle with House. It could just be a look with him, where you just kind of go, you know what, he's sort of thinking a human thought there. He didn't even say anything, but you can see it in his eyes. But I think that seeing the other side of the character, or just more complexity, rounded characters they'll talk about. Characters that they have a lot of sides. They're complex. You feel you're meeting the full person. Okay, the area of villains. What makes a worthy opponent for Alex Cross or Lindsay Boxer? I think that they need to be, if not very smart, at least very clever. They need to be able to surprise you. And I don't know. I don't think that's terribly realistic, but it certainly makes for more interesting reading. That the villain keeps surprising you. I didn't see that coming is a good thing in these kinds of books. I think that it's really useful if you can the more you humanize these characters, the better. Readers and viewers are peculiar in the sense that, like, you watch a movie, Silence of the Lambs, okay? At the end, we have this guy who was running the prison, who really, he hasn't done anything really bad. He was unpleasant to Hannibal Lecter, and he was a little, kind of odd with Foster. But, he hasn't really done anything awful. At the end of the movie, Hannibal Lecter is sort of, you get the sense he's going to chase this guy off into the jungle and eat him, and the audience cheers. What? what is that all about? Seriously, you're cheering for the serial killer that's going to go kill this prison official. It's not like the guy had done anything really awful. And, so and that's interesting to me also, the ethics and morals of readers and how they sort of fade away if they're really digging the characters. I had one villain who was a terrible murderer, and he was a house husband. And from the point of view of the wife and his kids, he's a neat guy, good father, blah, 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 blah. They had no idea about the secret life that this guy had and the kind of fantasies that drove at least part of his life. And that's interesting to me when you have, there's complexity. When you have a house husband, and for all intents and purposes, he's a good person. But a lot of times in novels, you get those sort of cartoonish characters, and they're not complex, and they're not interesting. And that's another one where you just want to put the book down immediately. A lot of the subsidiary characters are not necessarily so subsidiary. Alex Cross's grandmother, Nana Mama, is vital to the book in that she's seen Alex right from the get-go. She saw him when he was an orphan. She brought him up. She's dealt with the good and the bad. She's seen where he's gone from a little bit of troubled life in Washington on to an important college, into the police force. I have had threats from readers, many threats, that Nana Mama must not die. Nana Mama is in her mid-90s now. I have no choice. She will probably live longer than I will. Michael Bennett has 10 kids, Michael Bennett the cop. And that creates its own sort of impossible situation to write about, but that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it a challenge. And one of the challenges is to introduce these kids slowly. You can really, you know that they're all there and you know tidbits about them, but certain books you can really highlight one of the kids, like Brian, who's 15, and one of Michael's, he's really close with Brian. Brian's going to get into a lot of trouble in the book I'm writing now. Jane is 14, and she's very goofy and loving, and she actually, writes a diary about her life in this crazy family with 10 adopted kids, and that's kind of charming. So, a lot of these subsidiary characters become, hugely important, and they're part of what drives the thing, the book forward. And anytime I'm going to write an outline, one of the things I'll always do, okay, what's happening to the family, let's say in a Michael Bennett or an Alex Cross book in this book. And you have to be careful with the pets, because people get ridiculously attached to the pets. Even the Bennett family. Do not hurt Saki the cat. Do not hurt Jasper the sheepdog. Do not hurt Puddles the hamster. They must not die. What's going to happen in your book is that your readers, they're actually going to find out more about your character than they probably know about anybody in their life. They will know more about your character by the end of the book than some husbands know about their wives, in terms of their histories, in terms of how they think, or that wives know about their husbands. So it's a very intimate relationship that you're gonna, and that's one of the reasons that people love novels. But that's what you have to do. You have to create that character that they're not going to forget. I don't mean it's going to be the most important person in their life, but I never forgot that. I never forgot their character, because I got to know them so well through the talent of the writer.